Welcome to Team Rocket Garage. My name is Zach and you're watching the Team Rocket Garage YouTube channel. Has this ever happened to you?
Try the brakes. Did you cut the brakes again? Yep. God damn it!
Ollie.
Why would you do that? That's just what I do!
Well, sometimes you'll have brake issues, and brake issues are nothing to mess with. So what we need to do is fix a brake issue, which is a leaky line on my 1977 F-250 project truck. I'll show you how to make a brake line in this video so you can get rid of this. I built it! Oh. Hit the subscribe button! Alright, so there are 100 different tools that you can use to do this, but I'm the average guy, so today we're going to be using AutoZone's $30 kit. You go to AutoZone, you spend $30, you can return it at the end. That way you don't have to own a tool that you're never going to use again. This is AutoZone's Dorman OEM double flaring tool. Now, there are two types of flares that you're going to see on a vehicle. I'm focusing on a double flare, but we will have a bubble flare in the meantime. It's a little bit different. I've never used a bubble flare myself, so I'm focusing primarily on the double flare. If we open the kit, you'll see that we have a couple different items. So we've got our bubble flare tool, we've got our press, and then our flange that we can actually clamp onto the brake line itself. There's a few instructions and how-tos in here. I'll show you how to do this. Something else that you're gonna want is a brake line cutter and potentially a brake line bender, and I'll show you how to use this. It can be a little frustrating, but it does make the brake lines look prettier. We'll start off with, this is the remaining portion of a brake line kit that I bought off Amazon. These kits come with some fittings and they're actually pretty cheap. Now there is steel line, stainless steel line, and then this, which is a mixture of zinc lining coated in copper. I really like this because it's really easy to work with, and the normal guy can do it in his own driveway. It also doesn't rust, which is great. The very basic of this is, and I actually already made a brake line for my truck, so we'll just make a real quick brake line. I wanted to show you this without me running around and being under a truck and stuff like that, just so you can take the principles and move it on to your own vehicle. So typically you'll find out what length you need. I'll usually do about 20% extra length, and then I'll bend it and then cut it when I have it actually in place of the application. Then I can just flare the other end and I'm good to go. So we've got our first end there. We'll use our cutting tool here. This is basically just a pizza cutter with a clamp on it. It allows us to just rotate around a couple times, and then we'll tighten it again. Rotate it around, tighten, rotate, tighten, rotate, and there we go. We've got a piece of brake line. Now we want to make sure that our cut there is about 90 degrees. We want this nice and straight, otherwise the tool will have a really difficult time. Now that we've got that, we can set this aside. Now that we've got our brake line measured and everything like that, we could test fit on the vehicle and then flare the ends. I like to flare at least one end so I can screw into one side and then bend as I go the other way. Yeah, we don't need to do that, so we'll move on. This is our flange or clamp tool, whatever you want to call it. It's basically going to clamp on to the brake line itself, like so. So this tool simply goes around like this, and then you'll use this to clamp down and form the end of this brake tube. So what we need to do is get our distance right, because we can't just eat up all this volume here in a flare, otherwise there will be too much material. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide this through, and this can be a little difficult because this is designed to hold it. I know how to eyeball it, but what you'll do is you'll grab the bubble flare tool, and I'll show you how to use this in a second, but basically you just want that to be the exact distance roughly. And if it's a little more, it's not that big of a deal. If it's a little under, you definitely want it even or just a little more. We've got maybe a millimeter, half millimeter extra, so not a big deal. And then we'll go ahead and clamp it down. I always like to clamp down this guy first and then clamp down here, just because we have a little leverage, makes it easier on your hands. Now that we've got this in place, we're gonna take our flaring tool and we're gonna place it inside of our tube. Perfect. All right, we'll bring our clamp tool over like this, and the goal is to get this guy inside of this little groove right here. Now that we've got it in there, we need to clamp this down. Getting this just right takes a little bit of a hand, but once we get it right, we want to look around and make sure that it's basically perpendicular. We don't want this twisting a ton. A little bit's okay, but then we're just going to clamp it down with our hand. And we'll back this guy off. Take a look at it. That's funny. Our chrome coating is coming off of this AutoZone tool. So now we can pop this off. Then we've got a bubble flare right there. Now that's a little off center and I don't really love that. We'll try to flare it. It may not be good enough, but we'll try. Essentially you want these perfectly centered, but I mean, this isn't a perfect world or a full shop or anything. We're just out here in the carport. Now we'll remove our bubble tool and then we're just gonna clamp this down with this guy directly on there. And then we can pop it off here. And the moment of truth, that'll do. So we've got our flare there. So now we can pull this off and take a look at what we've done. That is not too bad. It's not the best, but it'll seal. Now, the way that a brake line actually seals is it V's out and then it has a sealing surface. So it's actually the metal crushing on itself that's sealing. So we've got our fitting here and this actually goes in here like that. And then we're actually clamping this brake line down against the V'd out portion right there. This is what would be in your master cylinder, in your brake caliper, in your drum brake, whatever. So we'll pop this off here. Now, one thing is to be noted is that you can't always put your fitting on from the back. So make sure your fitting, this is the most important thing, make sure your fitting's on here. Because if your fitting's not on here, you're gonna do the best flare of your life and then you're gonna have to cut it off because you can't get your fitting on there. So let's go ahead and grab our other fitting. We'll slide it on here and then we'll rush through and do the other side. So we'll make this one just a little simpler, a little faster, but come through here, grab our brake line, and then we take our bubble tool. We're gonna hold it in place as we manipulate our brake line through, and we want the end to line up. Perfect. Okay, so we'll clamp this guy down over here, clamp this guy down. All right, then take our bubble tool, stuff it in. Sometimes if you have kind of a rough cut like this one where it's hard to get the tool in there, you take your Phillips head screwdriver and you're just gonna kind of wallow that out just a little bit and then just make sure you get any metal off of there. That way you don't have any spare metal kicking around. And then you can see that actually goes in really easy. So again, grab our tool, slide it on, and we want it as straight as possible. And then we'll just crush this down. You can see our bubble crushing in there. Yeah. And we'll feel it bottom out. Undo it. Pull this off. And then there's our bubble flare. Make sure there's no extra metal on there or anything. Slide this guy on without the bubble flaring tool. And then get it kind of in place here. Now I'm doing this kind of soft because I want it to pull itself in. Now this tool kind of fouls right here, so we have to do this a little bit wonky like that, but as long as it's straight on, it's not a big deal. I just want it straight on so the tool doesn't have to pull itself. And then just crush it down. There we go. And we should have good flare in there. Now this is the point, if you hadn't put a fitting on here, this guy right there, you would notice, and then you would be mad to find a perfect flare. But yeah, see, that's actually a half decent flare right there. We've got our brand new, awesome little brake line. We'd be able to go and screw this right into the truck, just like that, easy peasy. And then you've got your perfect example of a brand new brake line. How do we bend a brake line like this? Well, it's actually insanely easy. You can do it by hand, right? Or you can use a brake line bending tool. These make really, really clean bends. And how they work is you just take your brake line, throw it right in here in the right spot. And then we're gonna bring this over and literally you just choose your angle. We'll go 90 degrees. Just like that, and pop our brake line out. Wow, that's a really sweet 90, but we need to go the other way. All right, so just like this, boom, all right. And then we'll just bend it this way. Boom. All right, there we go. We got our little zigzag line, and it's actually insanely pretty. If you like stuff like this, hit that subscribe button. hit the like button, and then comment below if you use this or what type of line or tools you prefer in the comments below. I love to have the discussions down there. And if you liked or disliked anything about this video, let me know. I want to do better for you, you know? But thanks for watching and have fun making brake lines.